River Slaney and Tullow very, very high. The OPW have a sensor out.
Storm Chandra brings flooding and road closures with warnings across UK. Large parts of the UK have been hit by strong winds and flooding as Storm Chandra sweeps across the country. The third named storm of the year has caused road closures, as well as rail, ferry, and flight cancellations. Schools have closed in some parts of England and Northern Ireland, where thousands of properties were without power. Yellow warnings for wind, rain, and snow remain in force across parts of England, Scotland, and Wales, while an amber warning for wind is in place in the east of Northern Ireland, including Belfast. This latest weather front comes days after Storm Ingrid caused widespread damage and disruption over the weekend. Rain in parts of southwest England is falling on already saturated ground, making flooding more likely. Firefighters in Devon and Somerset said they had rescued people from 25 vehicles that were stuck in floodwater on Tuesday morning. Honiton and Sidmouth MP Richard Ford said there were reports of around 20 flooded properties across Devon and Cornwall, a figure expected to increase as river levels peak. Oliver Kimber in Lostwithiel, Cornwall, said the lane he lives on was inundated with water. The severe flood warning, indicating a danger to life, has been issued in Upper Frome, Dorchester, while dozens more flood warnings and alerts are in place across the country. Another severe warning ended earlier on Tuesday in Ottery Eastmary, Devon, where the Environment Agency said the River Otter had reached its highest recorded level. Sections of several roads in Dorset, Somerset, and eastern Devon have been closed due to flooding and fallen trees. Local police have asked people not to travel in Exeter, as well as East and Mid-Devon, due to increasing reports of flooding. More than 40 schools have either fully or partially closed across the county. The Met Office says further downpours are expected for the southwest on Thursday, which may lead to more flooding and transport disruption. Some schools in the West Midlands have shut due to flooding, and flood warnings are also in place for parts of Yorkshire. Rain is still forecast in southeast England, while the Met Office is warning of travel disruption due to rain and snow across a swath of northern England, as well as in the Pennines and southwestern Scotland, where the wind mixed with rain and snow could create blizzard-like conditions. Up to 5 centimeters of snow is predicted, while as much as 20 centimeters could accumulate on higher ground. A section of the A66 between Bowes in County Durham and Brough in Cumbria has already been shut because of the snow. Heavy rain has now cleared southern Wales, but dozens of flood alerts remain in place in other parts of the country. Flooding is expected around the River Monnow at Forge Road, Osbaston, as well as at a number of locations along the Afon Lloyd. Gwent Police earlier said the A40 was flooded between Abergavenny and Raglan. Strong winds are still a hazard for several areas, particularly southwestern parts of Scotland, England, and Wales. In Northern Ireland, more than 10,000 properties were without power, and more than 300 schools were closed on Tuesday. Peak wind gusts reached 80 miles per hour at Orlock Head on the Ards Peninsula. Several domestic flights to and from Belfast Airport have been cancelled, while Scottish regional airline Loganair cancelled at least 12 flights on Tuesday. Ferry services between Belfast and Liverpool have been cancelled, and several scheduled services from Belfast and Larne have also been affected. Outside the UK, the Electricity Supply Board, ESB, in the Republic of Ireland said around 20,000 homes, farms and businesses were without power. Storm Chandra is the third major storm to hit the UK in January, arriving shortly after Ingrid and Goretti, the latter of which was described by the Met Office as among the most impactful to hit Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly in 30 to 35 years. Skies are expected to clear on Tuesday, but plummeting temperatures after the heavy rains are expected to bring ice hazards. The Met Office has issued yellow warnings for much of the UK on Wednesday as icy patches are expected to develop. Schools closed and thousands without power. Storm Chandra has caused severe disruption across Dublin this morning, with flooding particularly acute just south of the city. Dodder Road Lower is currently completely closed as the river overflowed at Milltown earlier, with residents describing scenes of unbelievable flooding and water rising rapidly towards homes. Dublin Fire Brigade prioritized life-risk emergencies as cars were left stranded across Rathfarnham, Sandyford, Nutgrove, and Rathgar, while sections of the M50 were also shut due to floodwater. Yet, despite the scale of the flooding, Meteorological did not issue a rain warning for Dublin yesterday in advance of the storm's arrival. Meteorological said Storm Chandra had been forecast to bring heavy rain and strong winds nationwide, with updated assessments delivered at a technical briefing of the National Emergency Coordination Group, NECG, yesterday afternoon. Foyth Keeley, a meteorologist with Meteorological, told the Journal that it had been highlighted at that briefing that Dublin faced a high likelihood of surface flooding. At that time, it was indicated that there would be a high likelihood of surface flooding in Dublin, largely due to a combination of the expected rainfall and, importantly, the antecedent conditions, she said. Keeley said the country had experienced exceptionally wet conditions in recent weeks, with parts of the south and east recording 3 to 4 times the average rainfall over the past 7 days alone. Keeley explained that Meteorological's weather warnings are primarily based on forecast rainfall thresholds, rather than how wet the ground is before a storm arrives. For a status yellow rainfall warning, rainfall totals must reach between 30 millimeters and 50 millimeters within a 24-hour period. She said that while Storm Chandra's track shifted slightly northwards, bringing heavier rain to Dublin than initially expected, rainfall totals across much of the county remain just below warning thresholds. Keeley explained that Meteorological's weather warnings are primarily based on forecast rainfall thresholds, rather than how wet the ground is before a storm arrives. For a status yellow rainfall warning, rainfall totals must reach between 30 millimeters and 50 millimeters within a 24-hour period. She said that while Storm Chandra's track shifted slightly northwards, bringing heavier rain to Dublin than initially expected, rainfall totals across much of the county remain just below warning thresholds. Louth County Council has warned that river levels will remain high in the county until Thursday, with further rain set to fall on saturated ground over the rest of the week. The council has urged the public to remain vigilant of debris on roads, avoid floodwater, and heed all signage in relation to closed roads. Wicklow County Council has said provisions are being put in place for residents in properties based in Riverfield, Aughrim. The Pavilion, Aughrim, is currently operating as a day hub and can function as a rest center, and the civil defence have around 60 beds available for use if required. The council adds that the rest center is available for overnight accommodation, with 20 beds initially available. The Community Support Center is also available for members of the public seeking an area to shelter, with tea and coffee facilities available, along with toilet facilities and phone charging stations. Meanwhile, all areas within the Arklow, Wicklow, Bray, Greystones, and Baltinglass municipal districts are continuing to be closely monitored. The N11 northbound lane at Kilmacanogue has been severely impacted, and crews are on site dealing with the situation. The Emergency Response Payment, formerly the Humanitarian Assistance Scheme, is now available to provide support to those living in properties directly affected by Storm Chandra in County Wicklow. The Emergency Response Payment, formerly called the Humanitarian Assistance Scheme, is now available to those living in properties affected by Storm Chandra in Wicklow and Wexford. Levels of payment depend on the severity of damage experienced and the household's ability to meet these costs from their own resources. Fine Gael TD Brian Brennan said it is essential that families affected by Storm Chandra are helped immediately, as many in Wicklow and Wexford